Okay, everyone, with the war well into its fourth day, Israel has received initial shipment of advanced weaponry from the US, and the IDF continues to mobilize its forces ahead of a ground incursion in Gaza and potential developments on other fronts. Throughout the country, Israelis are still licking their wounds from the devastating onslaught against the South on Saturday. With us to make some sense over the chaos is Director of the International Institute for Counter-Terrorism, the ICT, Colonel Miri Eisin. Eisen is also the former deputy head of the Israel Defense Forces Combat Intelligence Corps and is a founding member of Forum Dvora, Women in Policy National Security. Thank you so much for joining us on this devastating day, Miri.
As Talia just said, let's dive into it. All of us are professionals. It's day number 5. So I want to talk not about what happened, but to put some things in perspective and then talk a little bit about what could be forward. And really what I want to try and do is address your questions. So looking a bit about where we are right now. There was a Hamas pre-planned massacre attack on dozens of Israeli civilian communities and military bases, which included every different kind of massacre tactic, terror that you can think of. I can expand on those ones there. I feel that on that one, I want to hope that you understand how traumatic and how devastating. I'm not putting it aside. I just want for a moment to look at Hamas, because I want us all to ask ourselves, what do you think that Hamas, the terror massacre attack, was trying to achieve? And to that, I really, in that sense, in the context and the framing of what we're talking about, Hamas talk in very clear words. I urge you to go and listen in Arabic to what they say themselves, not 30 years ago, today, in these last 5 days, because this has been a call for the annihilation of the state of Israel. This has been a call to kill everybody in their way. This has been a call that allows them to do it in any other way, because we're animals. We don't exist. This is about terror at its harshest form. Mohammed Deif, who is the commander of this magnificent, that was me being cynical, terror attack against Israel, is the one who has spoken. He spoke on Saturday. Listen to his voice. Listen at the same time to the voices of those who are supporting it. I'm not talking to me about the clueless people around the world who think that Hamas in any way stands for Palestinian freedom. I stand for Palestinian freedom a lot more than Hamas. But when I look at the different voices that are supporting it here in our arena, it has to do with what we're doing today on day number 5. Because this kind of an attack, pre-planned, executed in the way that it was, the amount of weapons, the amount of capabilities, and we're still in it. And we'll talk extensively about the intelligence failure, but not yet, because this isn't over yet. When we're talking about this, there are 2 big issues in front of Israel. The first is the continuation of the campaign against Hamas terror organization, which is inside the Gaza Strip, which is based in the Gaza Strip, and its infrastructure is there. And if until Saturday at 6:30 a.m., Israel was very, very specific about how we attacked and how we targeted, we're still just as specific. But what we're doing now is we're telling communities, neighborhoods inside Gaza, in your neighborhood is the Hamas infrastructure that we never attacked before. We're pre-informing them about what's going to happen, and we tell the people to leave because we never target people. And yes, there is an enormous flow of people right now in the Gaza Strip because we're pre-warning them to move. And this is a tactic that we're doing right now because we cannot stand for what Hamas has both done and will continue to do. And their allies, their cronies, their backers, the different aspects there are our northern border, Hezbollah, and behind that, not like the spooky guru. I mean, I'm like, everybody's describing Iran in so many different ways. I want to be clear. Hamas, Palestinian, horrific terrorists, thousands of them, did a coordinated attack against Israel, not Iran. There were no Persian-speaking people who entered into Israel and butchered peoples in their homes. The planning, the idea may have been coordinated, even an idea from Iran, but this was executed by Hamas, the Palestinian terror organization. For years, as I've been talking with many of the journalists, as somebody who has worked in this arena, we've talked about this scenario when it comes to Hezbollah. But I want to remind you that Hezbollah is 10 times stronger. I've stood with many of you on the northern border and said they want to do a coordinated attack against the Jewish communities. And what will we feel like when they put their flag there? So as I look at those different aspects of both the rocket attacks, together with the simultaneous attacks, the butchery, okay, the inhumanity, even I, as somebody who has worked in this arena, and I'm the head of an institute of counterterrorism, the sheer savagery is something that I don't know how we're going to get past that, I say, in the trauma of our own scarred nation. But we're now reporting about it and looking forward. Will Hezbollah join? I don't know. I don't know if Hassan Nasrallah knows. Let's say that we deter him now. Aren't you all going to feel great that 10 times the capability of murderous Hamas Palestinian will still be sitting on the Israeli northern border? Okay, so maybe we should preempt and start this, because we are way more prepared for this kind of scenario opposite Hezbollah. It's when you don't look for it, you don't see it, which is, oh my God, how much have I taught about 9/11, that you can have all of the elements there, all of the capabilities there, but if you don't ask the question, if you don't look for it, you're probably not going to see it. I don't think that Iran had little ties behind that made the West Bank and Jerusalem and everything going on. There's a lot going on. It's not one aspect, but there's no question that the timing itself of will Hezbollah join is a combination of what are their aims, and I go back to where I started. What does Hamas want to achieve? Go read their charter, go listen to Mohammed Def, go listen to Ismail Haniyeh. These are the leaders today. They are saying it now. They want to annihilate us. Now go look at Hezbollah. Hezbollah are Lebanese, Arabic, Shiites, and an Iranian proxy. They're both. Will they attack? I don't know. I don't think you know. I don't think any of us know. But I do know that when I read their charter, I'm the Zionist entity that needs to be eliminated. When I look at the last year in that sense of the timing, Israel is perceived as being weak. Last thing I just want to say is an Israeli right now that has nothing to do with the other jobs, but it does have to do with that at the end, is that Israeli resilience is incomprehensible together with the attack that just happened. Because I've taken many of you down to the Gaza Strip. You do realize there is no more what we call in Hebrew the broader Otef. It does not exist. They burnt, pillaged, tortured. They came in for burnt ground. That is a savage Hamas massacre account. Wow, haven't I said that in that sense? All of my family is called up. I imagine that when you talk to Israelis, that's another aspect of it. So I'm more than happy to address any kind of question you want to throw at me and for me. But I do want to remind you all, with every Israeli that you're talking to, if they're talking right now about 1,200 Israeli dead, and we still don't know the exact numbers because they pillared, tortured, burned, massacred, mutilated, and it takes a long time to be able to identify the immense, amazing people that live in that area that sat there, and they should have been protected by us, the state of Israel, and they weren't. And that's something that we're going to have to talk about later. But right now, it's not over yet. We're still in it. And with all of that, we have the hostages. So I'm going to stop talking right now in that sense as an opening. Feel free to ask any question that you want, and I'll swallow deep and try to answer.
Thank you very much, Miri. I just want to echo what you said. Every single Israeli here that anybody on the ground talks to has been directly affected by this. We all have family members in arms right now, or having, been. Everybody has a funeral to go to. Let's just put it that way. I want to get to Gaza in a second, but I do want to touch upon what you had said previously about Hezbollah. Just before this call, we heard about the launching of anti-tank missile at the Lebanese border. There is a possible infiltration in the north. How do you think this specific incident could impact the next few hours of the war?
I think that in the days of what we're seeing right now, Hezbollah is testing the waters. And I say it in those terms. They're a terror organization. They're Lebanese, Shiite, Arabic speaking, based inside all of Lebanon. This isn't something outside that was imposed. This is something domestic that grew with lots of Iranian, again, not Persian speaking. This is about the Iranian Revolution. So when I say testing the waters, they're allowing and enabling different Palestinian groups to fire into Israel with the anti-tank missiles, and they may even be doing it themselves and taking some responsibility, but it's very specific on the different borders. What we saw on Saturday, the chaos of creating that cross-border 35 different places of attack at the same time with thousands of soldiers, that's what Radwan has been practicing for the last 5 years. They've done and put out, go and look for the different movies where they've put out showing themselves practicing that, firing the rockets, firing the mortars, all of the different capabilities on motorcycles and with low flying capabilities. There's no question that we were absolutely taken by surprise by Hamas. We've looked at that from the Hezbollah thing. When I say testing the waters, I think that I, as somebody who's looking at it from the terrorist point of view, is I want to see if Israel really has capabilities. And so they're looking at our responses. It's not just a chicken waiting game, because part of this is the strategy of, do we preempt? And we have been responding in every single one of these instances, because every day there's been a little, not a lot, but a little, including infiltrations, is that that basic question of, so do we preempt or don't we? I don't remember what I was going to say, but I think that answers that contingency. I don't know what they're going to do. I think that they're testing the waters, and Hamas put out a cry that said that on Friday, we're all going to conquer Al-Quds. Hamas put that out. And I said, go read what Hamas is putting out right now. They put that out yesterday afternoon. Friday, the day we're all going to Al-Quds. There are a lot of things, certainly within the jihadi Islamist groups, being them Sunni or Shiite, jihadi extremist terrorist groups that like to do things in significant dates. And I think that the Friday is a day that they like to do things, but I don't know if that's what will happen.
Okay, very clear. Moving back to Gaza and also touching a little bit about the term you used, the chicken, playing chicken game. We've yet to do a ground incursion in Israel. Do you think that Israel might be even losing a little bit of credibility and waiting for so long? And what are we waiting for?
Okay, ground incursion. I hate the terms. We have to think of new terms. So I'm posing it as questions for all of us, because you're going to hear lots of experts who will do it with exclamation marks, and there is no right, wrong answer. These are the dilemmas. We need to get to the Hamas terror infrastructure, meaning they came in with thousands. They still have tens of thousands inside the Gaza Strip. To get to them, because they are continuing to try to come. That's one of the things I think that in the different aspects of surprise, not with Hezbollah, but perhaps with Hamas, has been the fact that they're still trying to infiltrate in these last few days. They haven't given up. They have capabilities, and they're going to get to Al-Quds, to Jerusalem. And so you can only, through a ground incursion, really systematically get to these terror nests. Where are the terror nests? In the heart of the Gaza Strip, inside the neighborhoods, the refugee camps, the different buildings themselves. And as I said at the beginning, we're giving early notice, and we're telling the civilians, it doesn't matter if they support Hamas. It doesn't matter if they are part of that. They are civilians. They're not the ones who are actively terror fighting against us right now. We're giving them early warning. This is an early warning that is a nice one. It's one, get out of it. We are going to demolish that area 6 hours from now, leave. And they're leaving. And so the ground incursion is to make sure in that sense that you really get to that. It's not a complication. What is the impossible dilemma? I said before, Talia, we're in an incomprehensible and unprecedented event, meaning you don't have scenarios that have really built into this. Don't try comparing it. I mean, we compare specific aspects to different things. But we do not have in history a terror organization taking this amount of hostages by attacking Israeli villages, taking them all into there from age 3 months through age 85. And to be clear, they're going to start executing them today. Because it isn't that today it's going to end. And we're not going to stop trying to get to those tens of thousands of terrorists that are still there, that want to get to Jerusalem, Al-Quds on Friday. And there is no easy dilemma. There just is no easy dilemma. I'm glad I don't have to make the decisions. I want us to be aware that it is a moral dilemma on all sides. We never target civilians. How do we protect not just our civilians, but the Palestinian civilians there? So we're telling them to leave. And will Hamas put the Israeli civilians now outside it's going to start coming out today. They're going to do that. That's part of the terror taunting war, and it very much impacts a ground incursion.
Just before expanding a little bit about this, this psychological warfare that you've touched on, I just want to ask you what you think the day after should look like from your standpoint. We've been hearing about goals that kind of sound similar to previous rounds in terms of toppling Hamas. What should the end goal be here?
It's probably the most difficult question to answer right now. As a professional, I'm going to tell every single one of you that you cannot eliminate a terror organization. We did not eradicate and eliminate ISIS. It still exists worldwide. Okay, for everything that happened all those years ago, 2015, 16, 17, and the entire world was against it. I could do the exercise that I do with students, which is how I recruit people into these jihadi brutal terror organizations, because I don't do it by talking to them as if they are sadists. So what should our end game be? If I want to be very realistic, you cannot eradicate and eliminate. What you need to do right now is to try as much as possible to take out the active terrorists who are fighting, okay? And that includes a ground incursion. You have to make decisions on how you handle the hostage situation, because that's part of the decisions on the ground incursion. And for all of the different people who are going to put out the statements of erasing the Gaza Strip, of erasing the Hamas, I'm not going to support anything that's going to erase 2 million people. That's not part of my morals of where I am inside the state, so that you have to put realistic goals. But Talia, right now, I'm Israeli. I don't want them to suffer. I have no other way to put it. I need to kill the terrorists because they are coming in to kill me. And I have no way to do so without entering in to get to more. And I need to do so by telling the civilians who are not involved to leave. And I don't know of it. And so in the end goal in that sense is that at the end, yay, everything will be wonderful. Everything's not going to be wonderful. My end game is to arrive at some kind of a situation where we can also address the hostage issue.
So yeah, let's address the hostage issue. We heard about already that there were swap deals being discussed, and that Hamas automatically put them down. Hania, we heard. I don't think even in my wildest imagination I would have gone so far as to think about what you just mentioned, which is that they will start to be executed, and that's just unthinkable. How do you think these issues, swap deal or executions, will play into the hands of Hamas over the next few days? How will this affect the Israeli, psychological position? Is there going to be, are there going to be demonstrations against the government to cooperate in these deals? What do you think is going to, it's going to look like from an Israeli social standpoint? And what do you think Hamas is going to do with this card?
There's one thing that I've learned over the last 4 days, and I feel, Miri, myself, within my own professional aspect of the colossal failure of not understanding that Hamas was not doing what we thought, which was becoming more sovereign, helping out the Palestinians who they have ruled over since 2007 when they took it over violently, okay? And I'm saying that in the last 4 days. I'm looking at Hamas right now, Talia, as ISIS. They are going to execute the hostages. That's part of when I sit and I talk about what a terror organization is, and if I thought that maybe Hamas had changed, no, it hasn't changed. The leopard still has the same spots. The zebra still has the same stripes. And that means that they are going to do the psychological warfare with the hostages to impact you and me and every single one of us. And yes, it is. I don't want to think of what kind of scarring it's going to do to the state of Israel. They are going to execute babies and children and Holocaust survivors, because in any case, it's not going to happen tomorrow morning. And it isn't that after the first person executed, we're going to stop. Okay? The dilemma is impossible. Do you stop against a terror, barbaric organization? On the other hand, these are our citizens. These are our people. These are our civilians. These are our friends. These are our family. And so in that dilemma there, The psychological warfare is going to be the worst part of it, because as I say, when you recruit into a terror organization, you don't say, hi, we're sadists. You want to come and behead people? And you're already aware of the fact that soldiers were beheaded after they were killed in the last 4 days. That we're talking butchering here. And they're going to do this with the hostages to scare us all, because that's what a terror organization does. This has nothing to do with the Palestinian issue. Now, on that level, are we now ready to let out 10,000 Palestinian terrorists in jail that many of them don't have blood on their hands, okay? They're not my problem in that sense, but I just give you the dilemmas. And as I said, I'm really glad that I don't have to make that decision right now, because it's a decision.
Just one last question before we move on to the involvement of the international community in the region and so forth. Someone is asking that they saw that according to the IDF, there was equipment that the terrorists brought, which had shown that they intended to occupy several communities, but instead they massacred civilians and captured others into the strip, as you know. Do you think this was a change in course of action in the field? Do you have any indication why this would have happened?
I actually, when I read that, and again, I'm with the same open sources as you, this isn't about what the IDF knows in that sense. This is about understanding, that I understand professionally terror organizations and how they're planning in that sense. I think that they were seeing this also as the second wave. When they went in that first wave with thousands and simultaneously attacking all the different ones and bringing in a lot of capabilities to be able to continue it. This was long, pre-planned, organized for that. So I certainly think that they expected and wanted to have that second wave. And I think that what we're seeing with the different attempts to try still to infiltrate here and there is part of that they put in cache of weapons. I'm going to say something worse. Okay. We all have to be aware of that. How many bloody, horrific, barbaric, how many times can I say that? Terrorists right now are inside the land, and they were sent in to only pop out after 5 days. Okay, that can also be part of the pre-planning in that sense. And then you need the cache of weapons for them to be able to know where to go to. If that's all pre-planned, that can be part of that. They want to massacre and kill people. The more, the merrier. And they may have thought also that they had the capability, that, by the way, in their entire overstretch, they're not going to annihilate us. We're here, we're strong, are amazing. As I said, it's traumatic and incomprehensible, but we're also strong. So I think that those caches are there for that. I think that we're all worried right now about that domestic aspect, because I'm absolutely in strong belief that an enormous part of my population is part of my population. But when somebody recruits to a terror organization, okay, I do worry about the fact that there could also be people recruited who are still going to show up, who are inside now.
Okay, we've got a lot of questions about the international community, but I do want to have some questions on these issues answered first. One, from what you just said, so should we understand that the IDF is still looking for terrorists that are potentially planning future attacks in the next few days?
Yeah, the term itself that's been said that we're in control of the Gaza border is more that in infiltrating for more of the tens of thousands of terrorists who still could come in, that portion is one that is completely patrolled right now. And we don't feel, as you've seen in the different places where the IDF has put out, that there's the attempt to infiltrate, that we feel in control of. But the systematic finding now of the terror nests that they built in and around, that's something that can go on for days. This is dangerous times. We're talking about a pre-planned full-scale massacre attack, because if you have on your press vest, they'll kill you. This isn't about anybody being protected in any way. Mohammed Def said, kill whoever you see, period. And that's who they're killing. And so and that's systematic. It's going to be also monitored. This is not just an IDF activity in that sense. For somebody to be embedded and to be able to do that at the end, I don't think that they're human beings, but as animals, they still need to eat and drink, meaning that they do have to have some kind of supplies. They have to have weapons, so they will be found. But that's something that may still take some time.
Okay, so moving on to really where Israel is in terms of diplomacy, etc. First of all, do you know what Israel is doing on the diplomatic front to, alongside defensive and operational means, and also kind of a relevant question that's come in. Israel has obviously had legitimacy from around the world to defend itself after seeing the horrible pictures that have been coming out. Do you think we might be losing time in striking back if we want to maintain international legitimacy for our defensive actions?
I'm going to start from the end and then go back to the international community, because when there is no moral equivalency, you have lots of time. But if you start looking at this as a soccer match of 1,200 Israelis versus 900 Palestinians, then us, the audience that I'm talking to right now, then we are doing and saying it's all about numbers. This is not about numbers. This is about a Hamas massacre, war of invasion to murder civilians and soldiers. And again, the soldiers are part of that, but this is calling about butchering. And so on that one, I'm saying there, yes, it's going to take time and it's going to be harsh. And we're going to continue to tell the Palestinian civilians inside the Gaza Strip to move, okay? And we're going to continue to attack. It's not about the numbers. The opposite side in that sense of the world, or more correctly, of what the Israeli government is doing in that sense towards the world, I'll say the following. I think that the Israeli civil society leadership is out and about and in touch. I'm positive that in the Prime Minister's office, and I see all of the posts that the Prime Minister puts out, they're very, very active. We don't know that. We're the citizens of the state of Israel. The Defense Ministry, most likely active. We need all sorts of help. Having said all of that, perhaps this isn't about, there is no light. Okay, I want to be clear. Let's not put about the light, the good things, the Israeli resilience and what's amazing that's happening and everybody trying to help. But that by Hamas showing its true colors, and I didn't know that these were its true colors, by Hamas showing its true colors, the moral standing of the world is something that we've noticed by the statements, by the activities, by the actions. And this is not about the Palestinians. This is about Hamas, a Palestinian terror organization. It's not about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The attack into the heart of the state of Israel, which again, it's in a perimeter around the Gaza Strip. And these communities were left to be slaughtered. But this idea in that sense that the international community is understanding comes sadly for me, because it's also my understanding, it's not just the international community, of how much of a brutality and aspect is of this kind of Hamas terror attack, so that the international community, again, it's the regular suspects. Can we add into it? Post what Putin said and hasn't said. For those who are going to ask that question anyways, just use his quotes from today or his non-quotes. So I don't know what that will do up the road. It's not like we had some great warm relationship with Putin since he invaded Russia, very funny, since he invaded the Ukraine. But with other countries in the world, and I don't know who the journalists are from and from where you are right now, but I want to take note. Many of the Europeans and ones that have been very critical, and you're allowed to be critical of us, but this is not about the occupation. And this is something else. This is Hamas terror, is that the voices that we've been hearing, United States and Canada, you expect it. The UK and all of Europe, you expect it. Australia, okay, those countries you expect, but India, okay, Prime Minister Modi and India, and I've been doing a lot of interviews with the Indian TV, and it's that sense, okay, what happened is unprecedented. There's nothing like it. And it's being echoed with a lot of help. It's both the moral support, don't belittle that. We need it. I need it. I think every single Israeli right now needs it. Probably the most response that I've gotten in the last 24 hours of people saying, okay, because they needed something, was not necessarily a good story about an Israeli, because we're also traumatized about what's happened to Israelis. It was the picture of the US aircraft carrier coming into the area. That was like, okay, those are things that at the moment we need for our own resilience. So it's the statements, it's the being there for us.
We know that a lot of the captives and even the dead are dual citizens of other countries. And we've seen, press conferences by family members of those victims calling on their own countries to intervene and to try to help bring their loved ones home. Do you know, or can you imagine what Israel, at least in the foreign ministry end of things, is doing to coordinate with those governments to try to place pressure on Hamas?
I'm going to ask this as a question to all of you because I'd like us all to lead with this, okay? What pressures Hamas? What pressures a terror massacring organization? I pose it as a question. So your question in that sense, yeah, I want everybody to pressure. But what will pressure Hamas? I think that what would pressure Hamas is maybe if the Qataris said to them, you can't do terror attacks. This is a little bit too much of a massacre, which, by the way, the Emiratis said, okay? But it needs to come from Qatar. It needs to come from Saudi Arabia. And those, I say those too, because as I said, the allies of Hamas right now are certainly Hezbollah and Bashar Assad, let alone Khamenei. Just go and look at his cute little press release from yesterday, in which he is just so in awe of the amazing, wonderful things that the Palestinians have done for their liberation. Okay, he did it in his words yesterday. So I want to hope that all of the international community are together and that they're going to help in that sense. I want to say, sadly, I do not think that any of that international pressure does anything to Hamas, the terror organization, just like it doesn't do anything to an ISIS in that sense. And I'm the last person who used to say Hamas is ISIS. And I was wrong. Okay, I stand corrected.
I promised that we'd end with the international community, but there are some journalists that are bringing us back to Israeli society. So I do want to address their questions as well. The first one is about the Israeli Arab community. We saw that, the last major campaign against Gaza brought violence on the streets. Do you think that could be something ahead of us, or do you think that that we're not anywhere there?
I think that you don't understand what's going on if you think that's what's happening. We just had a murderous, Islamist, horrific terror attack against civilians in Israel. How many of you know how many Bedouins were killed in the southern Negev by rockets fired out of the Gaza Strip? This isn't about the lack of their protection. In that sense, Israelis were killed all over the place. The different Israeli Arab community, both Bedouin, Arab, Druze, and the bulk of them, there's been call outs for support. I live here in the greater Tel Aviv area. Kfar Qasim, okay, a town not too far from Tel Aviv, has put out that they are opening their houses for the people who have had to leave the Gaza. There's a whole world happening right now. This is not about what's happened before. Get out of that mode of thinking. This is a premeditated, horrific massacre. It's unprecedented, and it is very much affecting all the citizens of Israel. And having said that, Talia, I go back to the way that I recruit people into terror organizations, because yes, there are going to be those individuals, mainly young, who are going to participate in it. Certainly in the West Bank, okay? They're going to be all handing out candy, as you all saw in Hebron or Jenin or otherwise, on this horrific massacre. But inside the state of Israel, we have not seen that anywhere. And if it is, again, it's that individual. The voices that have come out from students that have supported and Hamas, otherwise, for the first time, it is the Arab students themselves who are shushing or saying that's not it, that's not what it's about. And you're always going to have the extreme voices, but overwhelmingly, this is something else.
Sorry, we just got a push notification that Hezbollah took responsibility for the shooting of the anti-tank missile. We're not surprised.
We're not. They've been doing that over the last few days.
No, okay. So just one last question, and then I'll let you go because we're really running out of time. Politics. Do you think that we're going to see a unity government, an emergency unity government, anytime soon? If there was ever a time, it might be now.
I'm willing to speculate on what Hamas will do. I'm willing to speculate on what the international community will do. I'm willing to speculate on what Hezbollah will do. I have no idea what the government of the state of Israel will do. I can say it for the moment as an Israeli. I really don't know. I'd like a unity government. But as we all say, everything that you've been covering for the last 9 months, it's simmering under the surface because the massive call up of the reserves in the state of Israel, overwhelmingly his mainly impact, overwhelmingly, those who have been in the protests and still a week ago, and we're all called up and all of us are in it. So yes, I want a unity government. I want a functioning government. I need to see that inside the state of Israel, but I cannot speculate if it will happen or not. That's beyond me. That's beyond me.
I think that's fair, and I think we're going to end here. Colonel Miri Eisen, head of the International Institute of Counter-Terrorism at in Herzliya, thank you so much for your time, and I really hope that the next time we speak will be under different circumstances.
I agree. Everybody stay safe.
Amen. Goodbye.